Hey, welcome back. In this episode, we are going to continue diving into string formatting functions in Rex. And today we're going to take a look at the strip and insert functions. And we're going to see how we can use them to continue to improve our report. With that said, let's get started. Up until this point, we have been working with a hard-coded dollar amount, and our manager has finally caught us and said, hey, you need to actually import that dollar amount. That's real. Now, we can do that pretty easily by coming up here and inspecting the data that's coming in here, and we see that it's formatted already for us. However, that's not going to work in the real world. In the real world, we're more than likely, especially on the mainframe, going to have something that looks a little bit more like this. And in this case, we have approximately 10 bytes of information here. It's left padded with zeros, and 8 bytes in is where we would place a decimal point because the last two are the cents. So our value is still the same. It's $11,247.10. It just looks weird. So what we're going to do here is we're going to first pull in this piece of data, the dollar amount, and then we're going to work on formatting it because our manager's not going to be happy if he runs this report and sees some weird numbers. So let's get started. Now, the very first thing we have to do here is we come down to our deposit amount, and we want to actually extract that piece of information. So we can do that by using substring. Remember, substring takes the raw data, and then it takes the position where we want to get that piece of information from. In this case, we're going to use the broker delimiter position, and that is +1 because we want to go 1 after that. And if you remember, a little bit up here, we defined a delimiter as a semicolon. So we're going to save that, and let's test to see if we're getting this back. We're going to replace this hard-coded string here with the deposit amount variable, and we're going to rerun this. We're going to clear it, and sure enough, we're getting that dollar amount right there, which is what we want, except, of course, it's not formatted nicely. So the next step in this process is we want to strip out those leading zeros because we want something clean. So what we're going to do here is use the strip function. The strip syntax looks like this. It has 3 distinct pieces. The first is a string. This is the mandatory part. It's the variable or the literal piece of text that contains the mess that you want to clean up. Without this, the function has nothing to work on. So just remember, the string always comes first. Next comes the options, and these are optional. You have 3 options, both leading and trailing. And if you ever have trouble remembering what these options are, try to remember BLT. That stands for both leading and trailing. And when you do specify this, all you have to do is enter the first character of whatever parameter you want. But if you want to trail leading spaces or something like that, you just specify the letter L. And likewise, you can do trailing as well. And that's option T. And in case you're curious, B is the default. Now, this brings us to the final optional parameter, which is the character. This is the what, as in what on earth do we want to remove? And it's important to note that if you don't add anything here, it assumes that you're hunting for spaces, and so you can leave it blank and, well, Rex will just make an assumption. Now, if you do provide this third option, it is important to remember that you can only use one character. If you use more than one character, Rex will get confused, have a meltdown, and will find it in the corner rocking back and forth in the fetal position. Okay, maybe that won't really happen, but you get the idea. We're going to pass in the deposit amount. We're going to tell it we want to replace all leading zeros. So we're going to save that. We're going to run it again. And sure enough, those leading zeros have been replaced. Now, before we get to the insert function, we're going to use the length function to figure out where exactly we need to insert our decimal point. Length is a really easy one to remember because it only takes one argument, which is a string, and then it goes character by character to count how long that string is. Now, yes, length is not a string formatting function. However, I do frequently use length when working with string formatting functions, so here it is. So in order to do that, I like to make a variable. We're just going to call it deplen. The length function takes a string, in this case the deposit amount, and we know that we want it to be a certain amount back from that length, so we're actually going to give it a -2 here. So this should be coming in at position 8, and now we get to use the insert function. Now, insert is probably the most complicated function we're going to be working with today, and that's just because there's quite a few parameters that can be used with it. The first is the payload. This is the character or string that you intend to insert into the target, which is the second parameter, and this is the base string that we're going to be modifying. The optional parameter that comes after this is the offset. So the character position in the target after which the new string is going to be inserted. And by default, it's 0. So we're going to be prepending anything if we don't tell it where to offset it in the string. The next optional parameter we have is called the field width, and that's the length. And it forces a string to be a specific length before insertion can happen. So if your length is shorter than the new string, it gets truncated. If the length is longer than the new string, then it's padded. Speaking of padding, our final parameter is pad, and we are familiar with pad because pad is that special character we can use that anytime something isn't as long as the length we intend it to be, we can replace it with a special character. In this case, the default is a space. So I'm going to come up here, we're going to do deposit amount, we're going to say insert, and we want to insert a period, and we want to take the deposit amount because that's our target string, and then we're going to pass in the depth length here, and that's just going to say, hey, insert this period at this very specific position. So let's save it and see if I've done anything weird. And look at that. I have not done anything weird or made any coding mistakes. It's the tiny things that make me smile. But we can see that I've forgotten to insert the dollar symbol. We can do this one of two ways. The first way would be to, a little bit of a hack. We could do something like this. And there it is. And you notice there's a space there. That's because, well, I put a space in there, and that's kind of how it works. If I take that out and we run it again, that space is gone. However, that's kind of hacky, and because I really like using this insert function, what we're going to do here is we're going to say insert. We're going to insert a dollar amount, and we're going to do it on the deposit amount, and we're not going to define a position this time, so that means it's going to start at the very far left, or 0. And if we run this, this should, in theory, do exactly what it did before, which is prepend it before the string starts. To review, in this episode we learned about the strip and the insert string functions in Rex, and we saw how to use them. If you found this video useful or interesting and would like to continue to see me make more videos, I encourage you to subscribe and like and even turn on that little notification bell so you can be alerted when I produce when I upload new videos. Until next time, this is Steven for New to Zed, and may the code be with you.